Hi, and welcome to the Červená Barva Press book launch. And we're launching two books tonight, Original Sin by Michael Folds and Confessions by Anis Shivani. So I'm really excited about it. So I'm so glad to see all of you here to celebrate tonight. And our first reader will be Michael Folds. He was editor of the first edition of the Power Sources Industries Handbook of Power Sources Terminology and published the online arts publication Ragazine from 2004 until December 2019. His projects include three chapbook anthologies, the nonfiction Sleeping Dogs, a true story of the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, Sandy, Chronicles of a Superstorm, Fashions and Passions, an ekphrastic series with artist Christopher Panzer, as well as Endgame, a boxed set of prints of 75 poems and images completed in 2021. He has been translated and published worldwide, and I give you Mike.
Thank you, Gloria, and thanks for all of you who have tuned in tonight. It's nice to see some old friends. We're all old, but I didn't mean it that way. I'm going to read from Original Sin, which many of you already are familiar with in terms of what it looks like, so I won't get too much into that. Most of these poems were written during the COVID isolation period. I'm going to start with the title poem, Original Sin, then go through a few, and if there's any time left, I'll read a couple from the series Endgame. To be old and able to appreciate youthful indiscretion, those artful moments of excitement and delivery from the future and the past while having a blast. Those mountains of conformance exploding into bits of memories lost in the instants it took to rip them rock from mound. On a simple whim, the driving force behind invention and consequence, the original sin clad in agnostic garb for whomever delights in putting them on. This is part 2. That was then, with apologies to VB. The transparencies had been expected, images of another time when we were young, naked, and unafraid. Not the kind of photographs you want to share with strangers or your children. Pulled from the slide sheets, they sat collected in a bag until the decision was made. The ash of their cremation settled on new fallen snow. The smoke was intoxicating, and then I was alone again. My wife frequently spends summers in Greece. I wrote this poem when she was out of town. I made our bed this morning, put on the yellow sheets to match the rare sun shining through the open blinds. I don't think I've seen the sun like this or a clear blue sky in weeks. I only slept on your side of the bed once, shortly after you left, to see if I could still smell you there, what it felt like. After that, I tried once, but it was as though I were trespassing, using something not mine. I've washed the sheets many times since. I feel your presence occasionally, but don't sense your smell. Smell I miss, the movement and the touch. It's been some time now. When will you be coming back? The depression on my side of the bed is getting deeper, while your side remains above it, the low-rise mesa. While the depression on my side deepens, I wonder, is this to become my grave? The outline of my body on the sheet in the morning and the deepening divide. I made our bed this morning, and this is what came to mind. This is called the Sedition Editions. So here we all are in our own personalized bunkers. The wall of fame around the Capitol has been breached. The wall along the southern border got its last visit. Now an army with physical presence stands watch to see an invisible, secular, immutable power or rule is preserved. The sedition editions of newspapers and news broadcasts echo loudly as the put-upon takes stock, admit fear, while sycophants continue parroting lies, fabricated events, and struggle to find reasons to believe the unfounded. Too weak to admit defeat, to see themselves as others do. History screams, we are not a peaceful nation. Wars within, wars without, assassinations, genocide. So much fades into history and seems lost when another face of calumny arrives to remind us, given a chance, we're no different from the rest. The barbarians, it seems, are always at the gate, waiting, preparing for the time the civil tides ebb, and they can satisfy their coprophagic appetites on what they believe to be the dead or dying bodies of liberty, democracy, and truth. So here we are, many of us driven underground by weak-minded, ill-intentioned individuals led by absurdity itself into the minefields of what another man imagined would put him safely in the ranks of Nero, Caligula, Hitler. Now that it's time to come out of hiding and show gratitude, a little old lady had the gumption and fortitude to declare not only is enough enough, but to put accountability on trial, not just a man. Should another charlatan try again to stack the deck, precedent will grease the wheels of justice so ignominious powers wither and die like hatred and lies in gardens of truth and dignity. As for the followers, some people just won't learn. This is a poem called On Dreams, No Reservations Needed. What are dreams but reflections of ourselves? The last music you hear echoes through the night, stays until erased by what you hear in the morning. That essential element bivouacked in soft tissue called the brain, protected in its shell of bone, has the rest of you to thank, like a humble performer sharing the stage with other members of the orchestra. It's no accident we are here, struggling together, striving to make our separate ways through this brittle biosphere. Why now remember Persephone? Was she once my lover? Why now explore changes bodies go through to metamorphose from infant to geriatric? Why now furtive glances into this future of the past, this crystal common to us all, the heart, the brain, lungs, liver? Why make one more important than another when it's the skin that holds it all together? That soft shell angels and gods peel away to harvest our stored realities, our shared experience. The vanished, leaving artistry, a few drawn characters behind, curious remnants, occasionally surfacing like bones of uncles from the muck of riverbanks. We travelers hit upon a cornucopia that illuminates the darkness when we're without a sun that feeds us round the clock. No reservations needed, but blessed to have had one. What are dreams but reflections of ourselves? The last music you heard echoing until buried in the midden of days. I'm gonna look for a short one here. Gravity. Gravity of the crease of the moment. With the one hand, I reach out. With the other, I want to pray. But praying is not something I do with one hand or two. I seed my ground, my future, with hope. Prayer is for believers. Make me a believer so I can both hope and pray. When gravity takes me where all things go, pray that what's there will make me the believer you said I would become. I used to obsess about sex. Now I obsess about death. Necromancy, dancing in the dark, the passion of dreams, or the dreams of passion. Not much left to obsess about, really. Sex was then, this is now, not unusual, inevitable. The quandary of youth, sex, how to have it and make it work, not disappoint or be disappointed. Now, a virgin at another door, every movement, foreplay, trying again to make it last, not disappoint or be disappointed. This is kind of for Paul. I am not interested in winning arguments because I'm not interested in having arguments. We've been pushing for decades, but the mountains have not moved. The rivers have not stopped flowing to the sea, and the sea still rolls onto shore, dropping kelp and shells that will survive on shelves long after echoes of the screams subside, long after photos of the scenes fade to white. I'm not interested in having arguments, but I do enjoy a good football game now and then. This is called Kickstarter. Got an email today from Kickstarter. Subject, projects we love, fornication. I lost interest when I read it again and realized it said fortification. This is called The Momentum. I like to watch movies with lots of intrigue, lots of violence. The movies that warn the following is for mature audiences. Contains gore, nudity, profanity, smoking. Not the smoking that really gets me. Most of the time, no one smokes, but it's easier for the censors to put that in as part of the blanket than view each and every film. When someone does smoke, I often wonder if it's the brand the writer smokes, or if it's the brand I smoked back in the day when a line or two, a needle, a cactus bud, a sugar cube, or candy heart were as readily available as smokes, though not over the counter, as the herb is today. I joked with friends my body was my test tube, a lab, to see what worked, what really worked, to take me to that other place, and what didn't. When I got sick, I moved on and away. The surprise in one of my old pals' past was not what it should have been, a reaction more like, must have been some really bad shit. The cynic never far behind. If you survived it all until the scene was over when the thrill was gone, when you thought you'd done it all but die, there was life to consider and getting on with it. The marvelous normal things people do when they desire to grow old and die peacefully. No lightning, no thunder. A guy I knew used to joke he wanted to go out at 75, shot in the back by a jealous husband. Actually, he was shot in the stomach at 35 and never walked again. I tried a few times to put out my own lights. The last effort ended up not such a great idea. Kind of boring, really, a long couple of nights in and out of bed to piss. The rest of the time lying in the dirt in a dark field of dried flowers, wondering when the scenery was going to change. It never did. A distant voice inquired, "Is that what you really want?" Death gave me the momentum to cruise the known and unknown universe. I was one of the lucky ones. This is called Voices. I'm hearing voices. I turn off the television. The voices persist. There's no one in the street outside where the rain is turning to snow. There's enough snow on the ground that people could easily be seen, where there are no footprints, no tracks of tires, boots, deer, rabbits, squirrels, cats, an empty scene replete with silence. This is not the first time. Usually the voices are unclear, as if there were a mingling crowd in a foreign film, a shot taken from afar, soundtrack up close. More than once they've gotten close, too close, close enough to say, "Go on, do it." And I did. If pills are something other than what they were, I might have slept a lifetime. The night the crowds outside will dissipate, I will extinguish the lamp on the nightstand beside the bed where I read someone else's poetry. Are they writing in tongues? Why is there so much confusion? Wireless signals all around. Is that what I hear, what I see? Why, outside is no one there? This race against time. They ask me to join them. I reply, I tried and was refused. Tell them I'm making my home here now, that one day when I'm ready and another voice comes to me, I may come along, but for now, once was enough. This is called Idle Portraits. The last one in the book. There are a few others I'm not going to read tonight. And if there's time, I've got a couple others I'd like to read. That's all right. This is called Idle Portrait. Where did we begin? With what line, what mark, what idea, what part of the face, what part of the mouth? Was it a line, an idea, or a challenge? Where do we go from here? Where is the ladder? Where are the stars? And that's from Original Sin. Can I share a screen here? Let's see. This poem is called Wilding. I don't know if I can get it to share.
I just turned it on for you, Mike. So now try to share.
Can anybody see that? Is that sharing or no?
No.
Okay, well, let's skip that part and I'll just go ahead and read it. It's called Wilding. We went wilding one day and ran across a dead soldier who said in no uncertain terms, the idiom of war persists, but you do not have to. We went wilding one day and came upon a ruined city standing not so tall in the wind that blew its embers to the sky. One day we went wilding and found ourselves alone in a field of bloody soil where the only things that grew were wildflowers. Threw our bodies into it with what little remained of what we stole. Where you walk is where we ran, remembered now no more than a wave in a sea of shame, washing up on a nearby shore. We went wilding one day, found ourselves as men asleep, no more, no less than sheep, oblivious to the abattoir. We went wilding one day, villainy, our first and last desire. And we have time? Are we over the limit here? Last poem. I can't hear anybody, so I'm going to figure that you're all still there. When my father died, I dressed in the clothes I had on and waited with my mother for the crematory staff to come and take his body away, stiff but no longer sore, cooling but not yet cold. When my father died, I pulled the arrow from beneath his wing, saw the blood seep onto his red feathers before he flew away, skittering along, for he could rise no higher, searching for a safe place. And I wept for him and for myself. When my father died, I pulled the trigger and sent the shot into the bare limbs where sparrows land in spring to rest and shelter. When my father died, I pulled the hook from his taut lip, slit his belly, slid my finger up his open gut, pulled out his heart and laid it in the ground, moist with piss, and ate the flesh. I heard the steel drum beat once when my father died, carried him to the high grass, dug a shallow grave in the rain, gave him his last rites, and left his bones to dry. When my father died, I saw his body take 3 shots, rolling away with each, as if leaping out of harm's way. But the damage was done. His meat was inedible, his pelt like his death of no value. When my father died, his body went to heaven, but I don't know where his soul went because I didn't see it leave. When my father died, I saw his body on the altar and knew his soul was already in heaven. When my father died, his grandsons dug his grave. When my father died, the cannons fired, the flags waved, the doves flew, and the night wore sequins on her dress. When my father died, I cut the grapes and made the wine. When my father died, I moved on, but never left. When my father died, I heard the heart within give up. And when my fathers all had died, I was left to clean up what was needed to be done, and did, and how the years flew by. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mike. That was wonderful reading, especially that last one. Oh, it really got to me. I want to hold up Mike's book again. Here it is.
Hey, Sco. Hi, Valerie.
Nice to see you, Mike. Thank you for that. That was wonderful.
Thank you very much.
And you've grown as a writer.
Well, I got shorter, but I guess I've grown as a writer.
Okay, we're going
Thank
to
you.
move on. Can you please mute yourself now?
Sure.
And then our next reader is Anis Shivani. This is his book, Confessions. Anis is a poet, fiction writer, and literary critic. His critically acclaimed books include Anatolia and Other Stories, The Fifth Lash, Literary Writing in the 21st Century, Conversations, and many other books. There's too many to tell you now. His work widely appears in numerous journals, including Yale Review, Georgia Review, Threepenny Review, New Letters, Times Literary Supplement, London Magazine, just to name a few. He also has written for many magazines and top newspapers and is winner of the Pushcart Prize and a graduate of Harvard. And I give you Anis.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you so much, Gloria, for publishing this book. I love the way it turned out. It's so beautiful. Thanks to you and Bill for the work. And I guess I have I guess it's weird for me to write a book called Confessions, and then I went on to write a second Confessions. These poems in this book are all 7 lines each. There's 100 poems. Then I wrote a Confessions that was 10 lines each, more like a sonnet. This is more abbreviated, the poems in this book. And then I wrote a memoir. So that was kind of weird. And I thought, well, let's stop that now and let's go back to writing fiction, which might have more truth. So the whole idea of Confessions is very, problematic for me. I mean, what is the truth even of the idea of self-portrait? How can you talk about yourself? I do appreciate, I love that this is paired with original sin. So I guess we've been doing this since at least Rousseau, or maybe going back to Adam. That's what we do. We confess, but I have a very difficult time confessing, actually, for someone who does so much confessing lately in writing. And I guess one way to approach it for me was to do it obliquely, which was apparent in this book. So there's a germ of truth, there's a kernel of truth in all of them, but it's written in an oblique manner. So perhaps there's a layer of secrecy or, there. And the other way to approach it would be through language and just the sound of language and words, and to create confessional meaning that way. So that's what I, tried to do here. So that's all I'm going to say about this, and I'll read straight through. I'll read from the middle of the book some poems, and then if you have questions afterwards about the writing process or about the book, I'd love to take any questions. I also just want to say about the cover. I love how the cover turned out, and it just reflects my whole discomfort or ironical attitude toward Confessions, because you can see this is an artist doing a self-portrait, but there's more going on here than is perhaps visible from the surface. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say, and let me read some poems from the middle of this book. In an attempt to write pure poetry, I followed the reindeer over the grasslands, monocle firmly in place. To avoid reprisals, I wore tanga briefs. I craned my neck to the heights of tall timber, not knowing how the Coriolis effect worked on me. My circadian rhythms wore off. I adored bottlenose dolphins and fed them orioles of merriment. Indeed, I have not witnessed any mezcal deaths, nor have I been involved in bar brawls involving mercury vapor lamps or torn sartorius muscles. A tambour can be a door through which to exit to Ascuba, behind which is contre-jour white matter. All of my life, since the first years, I've tried to recreate the coiffure of green space, gliding along the Chao Phraya with the bog asphodel. I am afraid your grief will infect my neutron star. You can be ravenous when I tell you how I make tuxelles for today's climate. You take liberties with my library constructed from peach blooms and radiation belts. You like to use the word sachet to describe your movements, pouring rosolio down my stamen. I would rather be a recumbent statue, my voice a fuzzbox from day school. I paused for a moment in the staging area, watching employees punch time cards. Those went extinct, like the thimble or the uterus, shortly thereafter. I do not know what time is. I do not understand hide and seek among flamingos. I think the Erie Canal disappears whenever I return to my dacha. I left the dead man's handle in the hands of my faithful servant. Dear Herptile deactivators, the Hermitage is full of Javan rhinoceros visiting us like multivitamins. I hate the word relativistic because running repairs are easier to conduct otherwise. The machinery of Tamerlane buzzes in me. Ignore the distress signals. Trudging toward the tropopause, your viola and my Bosporus clairvoyance, we encountered our first language. It was full of idiosyncratic fistulas, melange leaks, pulpwood, and silicon. I might as well be a Tamil speaker for all you care about my uncoiling wind chimes, the crumple zone that fell off the carousel. Carrion beetle, intifada among restaurateurs, the boy Skanda mounting the peacock, while the Tuver cross-train in the deep south or deep space to hide the finger of God. War has come with a glandular gleam not hidden from my left brain, with all the morphic resonance of viewports on oil rigs. Windflower, the odds are stacked against you. In my youth, I accepted this role of stage manager with much glee, unconstitutional though the forward contract was. I gave you the correct expression marks, though your congregation is too fond of Burnsides. Ascaris in low spirits can be motivated, English breakfasts can be reproduced in Africa, and game theory is just ganache over burst loins. When I encounter naivete among the long pigs, how do I carry on with progressive dinners? What sense can I make of the banishment of writer's syndrome? You, synergist of distributed systems, can you lend me the contraceptive for the evening? I do not know which side my bread is buttered on. I was not dragooned into franchise euphoria. What are your instructions for the median strip I will cross tonight on my way home from the sister city? Sirius burns bright, Dog Star, courteous coppersmith. The chatterboxes admit of no bull of the woods. Their enemy is herringboned and perhaps of herstory's molecular weight. Their modus tollens turns to primordial soup. Queen of puddings, I am truthful and loyal to you since my eardrum burst. What is curable among the order of lies? What is not? Fly ash, after my flutter tonguing, is like Lascaux's animals in my iron lungs. Through the grapevine, I learn of grave diggers waiting for my truths to come out, like fog at Point Reyes. Dear Shakespeare, cornucopia of glosses, eyes globe-trotting past hype and hymen, italics proclaiming me rearguard realtor of the tanager lands. What is tangible about time sharing? I wake up deforested. My dreams have the quality of the Counter-Reformation, and you can clearly see my caste mark. Let us choose the right typeface for the eye hole. Play the panpipes of a skeeter afternoon in our subfusc clothing that makes us think of the Voronezh we have never been to. Do you know about the great vowel shift? I didn't until you put me in the bodysuit. I beg your pardon for my Atticism. It is cheaper this way. We are said to have discovered Arabic numerals in our channel hop sleep. Even our antagonists grant us that. Though they may not like karyotyping, most of their legal capacity is a fiction, like a legend worth a red cent, a fireless cooker not thrown out during spring cleaning. Consider the eruption of the error bar, its nestled polemics. From Andalus to Delhi, a vast history of Nestorianism, street vendors who knew of tea gardens just behind the veil of sight, translators galore, genealogical gibberish that passed as harmless hobby horse. So much indebtedness, such a katzenjammer from the 12th century, whether I find myself in Kathiawar before the hour of birth, or whether I swallow the Katsubushi whole. My alliance was always with the poor among the literary men. They were the ones whose longevity I admired. What is it to be lonesome? I asked the non-smoking ones. What shall I do to remain crystalloid? The sperm of the sperm whale is in its head, and likewise, the Sphinx always thinks of trading stamps. They used to say pickaninny without qualms, merely a piano roll. From Pick's disease, we have moved to generalized dementia, sculpted tangerine brains in whose user interface caftans wave at me, cheer my inoculum, because I read too much for the honor society. When they came with the jaws of life, it was already too late. I acted like leash mania, caught between Scylla and, oh yes, the painted snipes at the swimming hole. I crossed the border in a palace car. The man next to me spouted the virtues of Atlas Shrugged. I remember his reported speech, his security blanket. He wanted me to subdivide right there in front of his eyes so he could scratch his temporal bone without reading my barcode. Yes, I crossed the border to unlisted sagamores. Sahib, the only injustice in the world is not having the luxury to hate rats because you are busy being a suffix to typhoid Marys, because the hickeys on your shoulders are from the enfilade in your home full of Hamzas and handbells. You are called illiterate and not aware of jazz by the Nawabs, whose room and board amounts to your four freedoms. I went to this party for game wardens. It was New Year's Eve. Interest-free loans were on offer. We ate jack mackerel and layer cakes. Lazy Daisy Stitch. That night, we shot the useless mokes. Then we played Mumblety-Peg, donated our open-necked loins to the Oversoul. The last one. Of course, it was a sheltered workshop. How else do you think I made it through sheet lightning? Graduation day arrived in a roar of graffiti as Mahatmas of unknown marital status told us, you are the best and the brightest, though you are all here because of an error. So go and explore the quadrant. You will perfect schizogeny. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Anis. And wow, your use of language. Oh my God, it is so nice to hear it out loud. And Mike too, it brings, you know, when you're laying out books and then you hear it come to life with your voices. I just love it.